All right, good morning again. Let's jump in. By a show of hands, how many of you have attended the Insurance Summit for the first time in Kansas City now? Show of hands. Wow, great, welcome. How many of you don't attend NAIC national meetings on a regular basis? Nice, yes, so this is the right crowd, so thank you, and again, welcome. I'll be presenting on Unpacking the NAIC Toolbox, but before we unpack, I wanted to start a little bit about talking about what we are building here using said toolbox and how that was built. So we'll start with the knowledge, we'll get into the impact, and then of course the action. It's tight quarters here, so I'm going to try to shimmy here through, but I think it might be safe to just kind of stay back here so I don't accidentally fall off the stage and then everything's ruined. Anyway, the year 1871 was, well, meh. And at 95 years old, the United States were still working some things out. I mean, today I would say that we're still working things out. But in ye old 1971, there were quite a few significant events that were called great. So first, the Great Revere train wreck of 1871. And then in Alaska, there was the great whaling disaster. And then from sea to literal shining sea and in between was the Great Chicago Fire. So what do these all have in common? Well, I would say they're quite big possible insurance claims and maybe a few denials in there as well. But it's also the year that the NAIC was founded, just a few months prior before these disasters. And so we started off as the National Insurance Convention, and a lot has changed since then. And their purpose was for regulators to get together for resources and support. And the same thing rings true today. Now, insurance regulation did exist a little bit before the NAIC. I think it's 1799. Shout out Maryland. Good for you guys. Just got it started. But in the past 150 years, we have to look at where we've come from. And it's helpful to know a little bit about the organization that's dedicated to supporting you in your mission to protect consumers and to ensure a healthy, financial, solvent insurance market. So the insurance regulation and the NAIC is pretty massive with a global impact. And so I am here today to reel it in. I'm going to expand your awareness of the NAIC as your regulatory support organization. So come with me as we pop open this toolbox and shed some light on the building blocks of today's NAIC. How can we best leverage the NAIC to benefit your work and your insurance department? Now, I see a few familiar faces in the room, but I also see a lot of new ones, especially looking at that show of hands. Some of you might be wondering, who is this lady? So my name is Christian Carter, and I've got a little bit about myself before we jump in here. So I am a Michigan native. Anybody here from America's High Five? Yes, hi everybody. I'm a Western Michigan Bronco. I'm also a CPCU, and I've been in the insurance industry, both private and public, for over 15 years now. I joined the NAIC about 3 years ago, and my fun fact, those are actually my two dogs there, Samson and Rambo, Rocket Dog. They're the light of my life, and they keep things going. But insurance has been the core of what I do. And you know, one thing rings true when I joined the NAIC is that one does not simply understand the NAIC. We don't just go to 5 meetings and suddenly we just get it. And perhaps it might have been a good idea to have maybe one of our more tenured folks, I mean, I've been here 3 years, to do a presentation like this. But I appreciate the opportunity because it wasn't long ago that I was in many of your shoes, and every day I'm still learning something. So I hope a lot of this would resonate. When I first tried to grasp committees and strategic goals and all of those buzzwords, I felt like I was in a tool shed, something like this, where it was messy. What I knew I needed was in there, but not all of it made sense. So I'm hoping over the next few minutes or so, you'll have some of those aha moments and some of those moments that will pique your interest to continue learning more. Now, the support that the NAIC provides is driven by the work that you all do. Our purpose is to understand your areas and your needs. And so on the slide here, you can see some of those primary areas. It may not hit all of them, but I would say that this is a general outline of what many of you are here today working at your respective insurance departments. And so with that in mind, I'd like you to share. And we've got to make this thing work here. A Slido exercise for you all. We all love those. So if you could take out your phones and scan. And the question is, where are you? So if you open this up, you'll be asked to check all of the areas of insurance regulation work that you do at your department or agency. And you'll be choosing from the list from the previous slide. Again, it may not be all encompassing, and you may have more than one. You might do rate and forms and leadership, for example. And so I'll ask the team in the back as you all are entering this in, yes, to show it. So let's take a look. Financial reg is in the house. Come on, actuarial pull through. You can do it. Consumer advocacy, licensing. Okay, we'll just take a couple of minutes. So everyone has at least one other person in this room with something in common when it comes to their work as regulators. That's pretty impressive. I see we've got a few more entries. And you can continue to answer if you need to. So, and we've got a few others too. So we'll have some follow-up questions to see which ones we may have missed. So as we go through this Toolbox Unpacking, please keep in mind your answers and think about ways to make the next step. Or if you're already engaged in an area, hopefully you've got some new ideas of how to expand that engagement. But let's start with an overarching tool, and that is knowledge about the strength and influence that the United States regulators provide, as well as its insurance market. There's around 11,000 plus insurance regulators in the United States and its territories, around 1,000 engaged in the committee work, led by 56 NAIC members, the chief insurance regulators. And from a world standpoint, 3.2 trillion, which is 45% of the global insurance market, is what you all are regulating. It's coming from the United States. And we'll do you one better, 28 of those individual states are in the top 50 insurance markets in the world. Your impact, although sometimes it might seem, solely state-based, you are part of a system that is globally respected and, may I say, the most influential insurance market in the entire world. So use this information in your discussions. When you're looking to build stakeholder confidence in the work that you do, when explaining how your state, regardless of size, is an essential part of our messaging and mission at a global level. There's a lot of ways that NAIC support can be categorized. For this presentation, I've pointed out a few of those primary areas, those bread and butter areas where we see a lot of engagement and a lot of value for you all. Regulatory work, expertise in research, consumer affairs, insurance department operations, and then, of course, technology. And all of these areas have places where they overlap, but in general, they tend to be our most prominent areas of research, or service. There we go, service. I'll start with regulatory work, and most of the regulatory work we provide comes out of the committees. Now, many of you may not be members of the committees, but there is a lot of work that flows from them that land in your hands for your day-to-day work. And it's not just the model laws, the white papers, the research, the manuals, etc. There are resources behind those resources. So at the end of my presentation today, linked to the session that's in the event app, there's a document, including this PowerPoint, that has each of these areas and then the contact, the email contact, if you wanted to learn more about it. So most of that work, again, is at the committee level, and that's the task forces, the working groups, those work streams, and your leaders and subject matter experts who come together to build this knowledge. It's made public to insurers, and the industry is needed. And then there's also those regulator-specific resources that we have as well. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but just take a look at these key areas in policy and regulation and think about your role and where you might be able to benefit from these. So for example, the government agency collaboration flows out of Washington, D.C., and some of the information that they have is published, but there might be a situation where you're wondering if something's passed, or you're trying to get a temperature on an insurance market environment issue where you need some insights. So the NAIC has expanded how we communicate. One of those is NAIC Connect. Show of hands, who's NAIC Connect users? Yes, yes, yes. So NAIC Connect is here today if you want to get activated. It's that regulator-only space where we're taking our resources that could be found in SharePoint or in email and building a communal system where you all can engage with our subject matter experts, staff members, and each other. And so you won't have to maybe be confused and have a lot of different entry points to get to these resources. So NAIC Connect, their booth is out that way, so please stop by. Shameless plug brought to you by Member Services. So these areas, how we shape them is truly based on the type of work that's done and how we can support you. And we do get a lot of that feedback from the committees. However, we have plenty of staff members who welcome hearing from you and hearing your needs and helping you understand. There's a lot of times where Member Services gets pinged and there is a question about structured securities. I want to understand AI more, things like that. And we can take it beyond sending an informational email and drumming up those conversations. Regarding expertise in research, I hope many of you are familiar with the Center for Policy and Research, CIPR. On that document, I also have a link to the research library. The staff over at CIPR, which is a sector of the NAIC, it's a division of the NAIC, build their research from monitoring the regulatory market and hearing from you. The work they've been doing in the Catastrophe Center for Excellence as a partnership with our education and training team is from a result of hearing from you. So that feedback and hearing and knowing and having discussions like you all have been having at this meeting with each other, our ears are open to hear whether or not something is helpful and that helps us guide our next steps. Subject matter expertise is found everywhere. And in Connect, what we've started to do with our staff and yourselves when you log in on your profile, you can select your subject matter expertise or subject matter area and then search by it. So if you are looking for another team member who works in actuarial services, you can find that as well as find the subject matter expert at the NAIC as well. Another good place to find that is also on the committee lists, of course. Many of those are categorized by industry topics, issues, and coverages. Our committee support, those staff are the same staff that I am mentioning that you could talk to about outreach or getting a presentation or more information. And then finally, our education and training staff, they have been expanding their work in the DE&I space. We're looking at retention and recruiting on the regulatory front. And that's where all of our designations stem from as well. You may have seen the NAIC Compass rolling on the pre-session slides. And that is the teaser for our new education and training platform, where we will be expanding the work that we do to educate regulators. And if you think back to that slide with the roles, that's how we're remodeling it. So there will be a path, a clearer path, shorter modules, and then again, a space for regulators to connect and learn from each other. And we can look forward to seeing that early next year. On the topic of consumer affairs, and although I saw consumer affairs towards the bottom of the Slido, consumer affairs and advocacy is the essence of what all of you do as regulators. There's a piece of consumer advocacy in all that you do. And so the NAIC houses the online fraud reporting system, the life insurance locator, the Consumer Board of Trustees and Consumer Liaison Committee, and then our communications department does a lot of media support for public information officers and putting together resources for you all to curate for yourselves and use them for the consumers that are specific to your jurisdictions. And so their contact information is in there as well. So thinking about the challenges that you have connecting to consumers in your state or territory, I imagine that varies a lot if you're California versus Nebraska versus New York versus Alabama. And what we like to do is hear from you and then understand your consumer, so then we can give you the help and the resources you need to be as powerful and influential and helpful to your states as possible. Insurance department operations support is this catch-all slide, I say, because there's a lot of things that we don't quite always talk about. I've touched on education, training, and professional development, but that department coordination and insights piece, it can be very, very useful. Knowing about other departments that you have commonalities on will help broaden your experience and your knowledge and best practices. The NAIC is currently undergoing a revamp, a renovation of the Insurance Department Resources Report. This is an annual report that shares information about individual insurance departments, things like staffing, salary practices, budget information, And then also information about your individual markets, such as premium volume. And a group of regulators have been meeting over the past several months to come together and sit down and say, how can we make this document, how can we make this resource do what we need it to do? So what do you all need it to do? There's a lot of conversations that go on, say, at the legislative level, and the budget discussions, for example. And the NAIC is a hub to get information from all of you, bring it in, make some sense of it, and then hand it back to you in a way that you can use it to leverage your conversations with your stakeholders, but also understand commonalities that you have from one state to another. I think many of you are aware that the NAIC membership is split into zones. We've got the Western Zone, Midwest Zone, Northeast, and Southeast. And I did that from where I'm standing. So it's probably like Western, Northeast, Southeast, Midwest. Got it? Okay. So being able to see the information from a lens of where you are regionally, but then also, say, by premium value, being able to compare and contrast those things. We have the capability to do it, and we've heard you all. And I imagine that there's several departments that could benefit from that type of information. So that is also coming soon in November. And then there's, of course, there's the member funding. It's important that the NAIC gives you financial support for events like this, where 6 regulators can come and benefit from a meeting like this. And so that's one of the major ways that we support operations. And then recruiting and retention support. You may see your postings on LinkedIn sometimes when there's an opening at the DOI, and that's something that we provide, and we're currently looking into additional ways. Because recruiting and retention is different in the government space. It's different in the regulatory space than it is in the private sector. So that conversation may look a little bit different when HR and other leaders are recruiting. So that's another thing that's been on our radar. Regarding technology, and there has been and will be a few more presentations in other rooms about this, so I won't go too far in. For example, SURF is doing a presentation alongside the Compact tomorrow. But technology is so important, and we realize that technology is expensive, and we're working off of public budgets. So the SBS systems and the SURF systems can be quite a money saver, and we try to be, as best as possible, an extension of your staff, extension of your resources. So even if you are not someone who is involved or a state that's even engaging in NAIC technology, there still might be an opportunity that would be valuable to you to learn about it or bounce ideas off of the experts at the NAIC behind this or fellow regulators who use it. I think there's been some conversation on Snowflake, I heard. How many have heard of the words Snowflake or ThoughtSpot? Or, yeah, so it's just gaining some momentum. It's those database systems we're looking at, again, to consolidate and make the look and the feel of the research that we give to you all a one-stop shop. So if you're looking for more information, I am going to add that to that resource document. But just to know that our way of curating these things come directly from your feedback, and it can be very difficult in 2024 having a Windows 95 experience sometimes. So that's the work that Scott Morris, our Chief Technology Officer, and several others have been working on to come down the pipeline. The main goal is to provide clear, concise, and even sometimes manipulatable, I don't think that's a word, data, so you can use it in the best way that meets your needs. And I couldn't not mention our 2 affiliates. The NAIC has 2 affiliate organizations, the Insurance Compact Commission, and then the National Insurance Producer Registry. Tomorrow, I believe it's at 1 o'clock, the CEO, Karen Hornick, will be doing a session on NIPR, and I strongly encourage you all to attend that, as well, again, as a Surf in the Compact as well. Story, I was talking to a commissioner who had been here for about a year and a half, and we had recently updated our new member orientation books, and I was sharing about it, and he said, you know what, Christian? I was here over a year until I even understood what NIPR was. So it's good that you're including these things because the insurance producer world is very complex. And although there is a purpose, right, behind many of these departments to serve and to give, technological resources, that subject matter expertise truly is priceless. And so I hope that as you continue your journey engaging with the NAIC, that you have those aha moments sooner than a year later. And in order to do that, you have to know where to go, who to ask. And then in turn, we need to be able to be equipped to turn those answers around to you and link you up with the folks that would need or that would benefit you. So how do we do it? Well, I've touched on this a little bit throughout, but it truly is a group of dynamic team members at the NAIC, many of the faces that you will see here. Not all of us get an opportunity to engage with regulators as compared to some others, those who, say, travel to the national meetings. So it really is a treat to have you all come in and to shake hands and hear about your stories. So while you're here, if you see an NAIC staff person, please don't hesitate to introduce yourselves. Tell them where you're working and the area of work in insurance regulation. And if you have questions and they don't know the answer, they'll be able to take it to member services or take you directly to that spot. It's just really a gold mine of a situation here that you see NAIC staff who are authors of some of these documents, right, who are the direct committee support, who do the work on the Hill, for example. So please reach out to a staff member. Even more importantly, our members, our commissioners, is how we get things done. The feedback that you all give us, the time that they spend together at the national meetings can be very grueling. They're long meetings, it's subject to subject, and the engagement that we get from them really is a testament of their good relationships with you all and their understanding of their markets and being able to come together to build best practices while still maintaining the importance of individual states making the regulatory decisions that are the best for them. So I definitely had to shout out to our members. I get this question a lot, and it's not talked about much, but our budget is public, and we get the question, well, how do we pay for all of this, or what's the revenue streams? And so I've just put a few of the most common, but the database fees, those valuation services, the admin and licensing fees, transaction fees, publications and investments, and in data products, and then of course investments is how we make the money. So we are a nonprofit 501c3 regulatory support organization. But I just thought I'd put that piece of trivia up there because we get a lot of questions about that. So yes, members pay dues. It's nominal compared to the other areas of income, but when we think about how do we make this happen from a financial standpoint, these are some of the top areas that we get that information. Let me go back one. So let's build your toolbox. Again, think back to that Slido and where you are. And to build your toolbox, I just have a few suggestions. So one, connect here while you're at the Insurance Summit. If there are areas that you've seen in this presentation or even in another, perhaps you work in one area of insurance regulation and have an interest in another. Use this time to connect in person, to exchange information, to log into NAIC Connect and direct message maybe some of the folks that you've met today, and get the most out of the presentations and attend them with a forward-thinking mindset. And then next, identify your needs and objectives. And I recommend one, think about the pain points that you have in your current space. Many of you are leaders. Think about the multiple departments. And maybe it might not even be a pain point, but it could be a how could we do this more efficiently? Or I wonder what others are doing in this space. Make a list of those questions. Identify those objectives with your manager or with your team members, and start to brainstorm what questions you may want to ask. Thirdly, use member services as your tour guide. There are a lot of things that the NAIC does, and again, I had mentioned before, sometimes it's not that easy to identify where to go to get the answer. If you send a message, and again, we'll have that information at the end, to memberservices@naic.org, think of that as your headquarter concierge central, because we have a team, including myself, who monitors those emails, and then we can link you up with the right NAIC person. Sometimes that NAIC person might be another team member. Another times, it might be a fellow regulator. Perhaps the best person to talk about a situation would be, I don't know, the chair of a committee, for example. But it's our job, and we take it very seriously, to be as resourceful as possible to get you to where you need to be. So I'm hoping over the next few months we'll see an influx of questions from you all. And that could be anything of tell me more about, or do you even have this? Maybe we do, maybe we don't, maybe we can point you to the right direction. But we don't want you to walk away feeling overwhelmed in a sense that you don't know what the next step to get information is, and that would be at member services. Next, engage in those resources and services as needed. And it might not be in the next month or the next 2 months. Perhaps you find something that you might want to learn about and implement in future years. Perhaps there is a seminar or a talk that we'll be having that you didn't know about before. And again, as we're building up all of those resources on NAIC Connect, there's nothing more rewarding or fun, at least for me, to have some one-on-one time with a department or with their staff or with any of you. And then finally, apply what you find most valuable. And the things that we do, for example, model laws, right? That's not something you can just say, yes, we're doing it, right? So we have a person in our legal team. Her name is Holly. And part of her job is to liaise with your team members and help if you're interested in implementing a model law, pairing you with the subject matter experts and those who focus on the model laws. So it's your team, but you're also backed by experienced regulatory support folks. And if you don't know where to find it, now you do. Email us. We're constantly looking at it, and we'll get you to the right place. Applying what you learn here and what you learn about the NAIC resources also may vary by things that are necessary to discuss with others. You may want to chat with your commissioner, your deputies, other stakeholders. But what we want to do is get you the information needed to hold intelligent conversations, to be able to articulate it in a way that sends the message that you are looking for. I mentioned legislators. We're coming towards the end of the year. Many of you have ledge sessions coming up. And being able to glean information and resources from the NAIC, needing help to explain what we do and how it impacts you are all things that we are really ready and willing to do and help you with. So that is about it. That QR code is to my business card. if you wanted to scan it and shoot me an email. Otherwise, please do email memberservices@naic.org for your questions. And that went a little bit quickly, but I wanted to have some time for questions. And even if it's a question about services that we can't answer today, it would be great to start getting the ball rolling on understanding what interests you all. Questions? Was it helpful? All right, so I am early, I think, right? So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I am around. And I hope to see you in the mailbox. I hope to see you over at Connect as well. Thanks again.